Yes, we try to reconnect with our center and make sure that we have a proper motivation or to generate motivation. On the one hand, it seems so an aspiration for complete enlightenment, for the welfare of others. And for that, we know we need to generate compassion, great compassion. We also need to realize ultimate reality. To do that, we need to create merit. And merit is created based on the mind, or intentions. And if it's helpful for you, then you can think about some sentient beings surrounding you. Dear ones, strangers, and maybe some people that you don't like, with a wish for them to have lasting happiness and freedom from suffering and its causes. If we do a brief meditation on generating bodhicitta, using the steps that we have now seen in a very summary way. The first thing, a bit about the reasonings for developing equanimity. Thinking all sentient beings want to be happy, not to suffer. And how we've been in various relationships with each being. Remember that equanimity is not indifference, and nor does it mean that we don't have friends and that there are no strangers, no people that want to hurt us, but that our extreme attachments and aversions and indifference, that these disappear from our mind. I think that everybody are equally, on a fundamental level, equally deserving of happiness. Based on that, we then establish that each being has been our mother at some point, because our consciousness is beginningless. And kindness, and we take the whoever was most kind to us in this life. Think about their kindness. Then we can project that understanding of kindness onto a few other beings, few friends, strangers, and enemies, thinking that at some point they were equally kind to us, if not even more kind. Remembering the kindness, automatically comes loving kindness, wishing them to be happy, and we can think about how they are not happy right now, how they never experienced lasting happiness because of always being under control of contaminated karma, self-grasping, self-centeredness. So we think about how they are lacking happiness and we wish them happiness. They are plagued by many sufferings. Think about the three types. Those who are plagued from suffering of suffering, and we wish them freedom from that. Those mothers who are caught up in suffering of change, and we wish them freedom from that suffering. And those mother sentient beings who are experiencing contaminated bliss of concentration, but still have not escaped cyclic existence, and wish them freedom from that suffering. If you want to use words, you think how wonderful they were free from that suffering. May I myself be able to free them from that suffering. One way of thinking of sentient beings here is to imagine your mother being blindfolded and walking near a precipice. Your only wish will be to save her from falling over the precipice. And in the same way, beings are blinded by ignorance, ignorance of law of cause and effect, and ignorance of selflessness. So they continue to take cyclic assistance, take rebirth in cyclic assistance. From there, we generate a special intention, a resolve to become a Buddha. Completely purify our mind from its obscurations. Because it's only like that that we can actually accomplish the welfare for a vast number of beings, all sentient beings. And becoming a Buddha doesn't mean that we have to become somebody completely else, but that we need to, in one sense, become ourselves, our true self. The self which is not bound by afflictions and by cognitive obscurations. This is the mind of bodhicitta. With that motivation, we engage in this teaching and in our day and in our life. We rest our mind and come out of our meditation. Once we generate bodhicitta, one becomes a bodhisattva, or an enlightenment hero, or an enlightened being. Bodhi being enlightenment, and sattva being hero, or being. A hero striving for enlightenment. Hero because because you're driven by a noble intention, and because you are willing to go through hardships to achieve the goal of enlightenment. And you prepare yourself. You understand that you will need to go through hardships to achieve enlightenment. Enlightenment has never been achieved without going through hardships. So it is generally said, His Holiness is like this. And when you check the stories of sort of enlightened masters, you see that they had to go through quite an ordeal to get there. But it's little by little, it's a gradual path. So what the Bodhisattva needs to do is to practice the 6 perfections. So the question of Subahu, the Mahayana Sutra question of Subahu, the Bodhisattva Subahu asked Shakyamuni Buddha, what does a Bodhisattva need to do in order to achieve enlightenment in a most quick way? And he says that a Bodhisattva needs to continuously and consistently practice the 6 perfections. And then he explains what these 6 perfections are. And they are, those, what are the 6 perfections?
Generosity.
Concentration.
Patient.
Mhm.
Patient is the first one, right?
No.
No?
Generosity is the first.
Generosity, patient,
Wisdom.
wisdom, what's the last?
Joyous effort.
Um,
And Compassion. You are doing.
Ethics. So they, in the correct orders, they are generosity, ethics, patience, choice effort, concentration. There is disorder because it said that it is easier, in general, it's easier to practice generosity than practice patience. Easier to practice patience than to practice, easier to practice generosity than ethics than patience, and so on, all the way up to wisdom. So that's why they're in this order. And the Bodhisattva, of course, practices these perfections all together, but perfects them one by one on the pure, on the bhumis, from the path of seeing outward. The Buddha then explained, what is the nature of generosity, ethics, and so on, and how do you develop them? So just in brief, the generosity is the mental intention of giving, and then the verbal and the physical acts which comes from that. So it's a mental act, primarily a mental act. And you can practice generosity mentally and create merit, positive imprints in your mind stream by doing that.
How mentally?
Visualizing making offerings,
Mm.
for example, to your teacher, to parents, to gurus, to monastics, whatever, to poor people, visualizing making offerings.
Mm.
So sort of preparing, directing your mind already to generosity. Yeah. When you see beautiful things, then thinking that you're making offerings to the Teacher Sata. For example, using the cloud mantra as well. But it's also, of course, the physical and verbal actions which come from that. But the main thing is about the motivation, that when you're giving for it to be a perfection, it needs to be motivated by bodhicitta, and that should also be conjoined with the mind of wisdom. And the mind of wisdom here is about seeing that the one who's giving, the one who's receiving, and the act of giving, they are dependent risings, and they don't exist from their own side. They don't exist inherently. They don't exist independent of each other. And me as a giver, I depend on the receiver. There is no giver without a receiver. There is no giving without a receiver. And there is no enlightenment. Since there is no enlightenment without giving, there is no enlightenment without a receiver. So instead of thinking, I am so kind because I'm giving things to others, you can have the attitude, the recipient is so kind because based on this person, I am, fulfilling my own aim of enlightenment. Having the view of dependent arising and an emptiness while we engage in the perfections prevent us from grasping more at the self, from generating pride, and also from generating anger when, our actions are not well received. So that's why it's important to do things with the awareness of emptiness or dependent arising.
That's wisdom.
Yeah.
That's why like the all six are they're not just one after one, they're not just steps, right? It's like intertwine, as I say, intertwine one with each other.
Exactly. A bodhisattva aspires to practice all of the six perfections within one perfection. So when they practice generosity, if that is the main practice, they also practice ethics, the ethics of generosity. By, for example, only giving wholesome things, or by not giving with an attitude of belittling the one that you're giving to, or by not bringing liberation to mind as a goal, especially that one, not bringing liberation as the mind, but complete enlightenment. That's the ethics of the bodhisattva while giving. The patience can be, for example, that you're patient with that the recipient does not appreciate your gifts, even criticize you for the gift, like the person with the Shariputra, that you can bear any hardships that exist within giving. Then joyous effort that you give joyously and not, grudgingly with miserliness and so on. And concentration that you give with a single pointed mind, or you give with mindfulness, you're fully aware of what you're doing. And then wisdom is being aware of the three spheres, that the recipient, act of giving, and the one giving, they arise or exist only in dependence upon each other, and therefore are empty of inherent existence. This subject-object duality, which is so strong for me and for ordinary people, does not exist really as it seems. In emptiness, everything is one taste. Apprehending consciousness and the apprehended object are one taste in emptiness. So not having dualistic thinking while giving, while practicing while practicing ethics and so on. So for each perfections, they try to integrate the other perfections into that as well. So if we can do something similar to that in our day-to-day life, to remember the other perfections, that makes that action much more powerful. And then that it's based on the bodhicitta motivation. I'm doing this when we can do that in a contrived way, but because until that becomes, uncontrived bodhicitta, one has to contrive it a bit, but I'm doing this for the sake of complete enlightenment, for the sake of sentient beings. Ethics has the nature of refraining from harming. That's the main future of ethics, but it can also be the ethics of developing virtuous qualities and the ethics of benefiting others. So based on developing virtuous qualities, then you can benefit others. Without virtuous qualities, it will be difficult to benefit others. So, yes, the stronger your qualities of ethics, patience, and so on, compassion, love, but also the more skills you have, the stronger your skill set is, the more you have actually to benefit others. Sometimes they say that bodhisattvas, they try to learn, everything that will be beneficial for beings, building bridges and hospitals and yes, engineering, medicine, all these worldly crafts and sciences they try to learn as well in order to benefit beings. Once the Dharma knowledge and the motivation is stable in them, they work on this as well. But if you come into Dharma with those skills, then you can use those skills, integrate that in the Dharma. Patience has the nature of being unperturbed or being calm in the face of difficulties. So when you're patient with people that are trying to harm you or trying to harm friends and so on, in the sense of being calm, not in the sense of, being a doormat, but in the sense of keeping a calm mind free from hatred. And that, based on that, taking the measure you need to stop those beings. Then you have the patience with sufferings. So when we have pain and mental suffering arising in us, instead of going into self-pity, instead of going into, doesn't mean we have to be complete like Navy SEAL with ourselves and just push ourselves, you suffer, you take it, and so on. No, you acknowledge you're suffering, okay. And yeah, you feel sad and so on, but don't, bury yourself in the suffering and the grief. You try to sort of pick yourself up. So it's a patience of being calm with regard to your own suffering, and then the patience with regard to the Dharma. And that can be a forbearance, patience with regard to the meaning of emptiness, like not being scared of the meaning of emptiness, but trying to familiarize yourself more and more, even though you start to maybe solid reality is dissolving a bit, or a lot, and but also patience with regard to the law of cause and effect. So creating virtue is not like putting a coin into a jukebox and then immediately getting the melody afterwards. Participation is like putting seeds in the ground and then nourishing those seeds and eventually having crops of happiness. So you need patience, also with the law of cause and effect. Joyous effort is a delight in virtue. So actually enjoying Dharma practice, understanding the Dharma practice, when we do it skillfully, when we do it skillfully, it brings joy. In the beginning, it might be difficult. We feel we're giving up things and, have to refrain myself and I actually want to harm somebody, or I don't really feel like giving, even though I should. The teaching said I should, and so on. It's not like that. It's a little by little changing ourselves, accepting ourselves as, at our level, but also striving for the sort of the Bodhisattva ideal and seeing that we can change ourselves little by little. And by practicing virtue, we will see from our own experience that there is a lot of joy coming from it, a lot of mental pleasure and peace. So we develop joy in Dharma, and we start to think, it's worthwhile to put my energy there because I'm continuously producing causes for happiness in the future. And also with more compassion, with more love, the more joy we will take in Dharma practice. If we try to benefit others, but we do it with a lot of grudge, then it's because of self-grasping and self-cherishing. We're doing what we think we're supposed to do, but we're doing it based on a lot of me, and what do I get out of it? When do I get my reward? When do people see how good I am or much I did done for them, and so on and so on. So that's not the point. To try to do the Dharma practice with less self-grasping, less self-cherishing, and then you will do it with joy as well. Shantideva, he says something like, benefiting others, at certain point at least, it is like just feeding yourself. You're not expecting a reward for feeding yourself. It's just, it's perfectly. So it's just you enjoy your work sort of thing. And you don't even need the salary. You would even pay maybe to do it. at a certain point. And you don't expect any special reward or something because you enjoy it. Then the perfection of concentration. So the nature of concentration is a single point of mind. And that can be, so it's about developing a single point of mind. So one has to learn all the various instructions that are involved in cultivating shamatha, because this becomes an important tool for the bodhisattva. Already on the already on the first path, the path of accumulation. Definitely on the third level of the path of accumulation, the bodhisattva has developed clairvoyances, and also what's called the concentration of stream of dharma. So with the clairvoyances, you can benefit others more skillfully. Like my teacher in the monastery says, if you want to be a good teacher, you need to have clairvoyance. So my teacher, he's a good teacher. I don't know if he clairvoyance is on, but
very progressive clairvoyance. No, you have to be very high practitioner.
Yes, you need to have at least come abiding, and then based on that you can develop clairvoyances. So the Bodhisattva strives to develop the clairvoyances because with those they can benefit others. They can see what people really need. They can read their minds, so they see what they really need. They can maybe inspire others by magical displays. Remember past lives of themselves and others, so they can see maybe some karmic patterning of themselves and others. So again, giving others what they need. So it becomes like early on the path. And those are developed based on concentration, high levels of concentration. And with the stream of Dharma, even another attainment, then they can hear teachings directly from Buddhas in various universes. So they can go to the sort of valid sources to have inspiring Dharma teachings whenever they want. And then wisdom. So Shantideva says in the 9th chapter that all the preceding perfections that I taught was for the sake of wisdom. And everything that the Buddha taught was for the sake of wisdom. It doesn't mean that wisdom is more important than the other perfections. All the perfections are equally important or indispensable for achieving enlightenment, but wisdom is the only perfection, only mind which can eliminate ignorance, the cause of suffering. Because it's the only mind which can generate the opposite mode of seeing reality to ignorance. So ignorance is grasping everything to exist inherently from its own side and then of itself. As if everything is having an independent reality. Whereas wisdom, the wisdom of dependent arising or interdependence, understands because all phenomena are dependent arisings, they are devoid of independent existence, or they are devoid of intrinsic existence, or existence from their own side. Yeah. So there's various, so this wisdom is called ultimate bodhicitta. So the talk was about conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. Conventional bodhicitta is the sort of the compassionate mind, and based on that, you practice the 5 first perfections, and you accumulate merit based on that. And based on the wisdom, the ultimate bodhicitta, you try to realize ultimate reality, and you complete the perfection of wisdom. And both of these are indispensable to achieve Buddhahood. With the accumulation of merit, you attain the form bodies of a Buddha, as said in the sutra presentation to be the substantial cause of the form bodies, and the accumulation of wisdom is the substantial cause of the wisdom body, the omniscient mind. If you only practice wisdom, but devoid of skillful means, that is, devoid of perfections and devoid of compassion, then what happens?
I'm a narcissist.
A what?
Narcissist. Ignorant.
A narcissist.
Narcissist.
Oh no, I wouldn't say narcissist, but you become arhat.
Ah, okay.
So
Better
no,
than a narcissist.
much
Yeah.
better.
A bit better.
Narcissist.
Compassion without wisdom, or wisdom without compassion?
Wisdom without compassion. So you don't want to come back even, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to help others.
Yeah, it's small scope, no?
Middle school.
Middle school.
So if we differentiate levels of self-centeredness, then it said that the mind, which is only striving for happiness in this life, is a coarse level of self-centeredness. Even coarser than this is when you're striving for happiness in this life and only for yourself. Then you're what we would say a narcissist or even a psychopathic psychopath, right? The only way you can deal with others is in an instrumental way. You see everybody as an instrument for your own happiness, for your own survival, and that's the only value they have.
But it's not like our hearts don't have compassion, it's just they don't have the cheetah.
So lesser self-centeredness than that is when one is able to forgo the excellences of this life, the attachment to those excellences in this life, and strive for happiness in future lives. It's still self-centered, you are in the focus, but it's less coarse, it is said, because you're starting to, then you're ready to really respect others, practice generosity, and so on, without expecting a reward here and now. Less self-centered than that, so subtle self-centeredness, it is when you're striving for liberation for yourself alone. So this is called subtle self-centeredness. So an arhat can have immeasurable compassion, immeasurable love, can really be a wonderful, kind, incredible person. But in the background, there is still this sentiment, I am more important than others, or we are equally important, but I cannot accomplish the welfare of everybody else. That's their job.
But how is it, like, if a person realizes wisdom and he understands emptiness, how is it possible to think like this?
How is it possible to think like this?
That there's still like self-cherishing and like the thought that I'm more important than others.
Because even though an arhat wants each and every being to achieve liberation and wants each and every being maybe to achieve Buddhahood even, and it is genuine, like it's a deep-seated feeling, there is not the compassion, the great compassion, which motivates the courage to take it on herself. Simply, it's too big of a project. It means that you will have to continue to suffer in samsara until everybody else have, got around to understand that samsara is suffering and they also want to be free.
So they understand their nirvana is dependent on the kindness of other people, and they are compassionate, but they say, okay, but it's not my job to release them from samsara because it's too complicated. They don't have a big motivation for this, but they do understand dependent arising and emptiness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wonder how, I've wondered in the past how a Theravada Buddhist would see it or explain it, like whether they would agree to that definition. or not, whether to them Arhat is like the epitome that is enlightenment but I'm sure they also have the pillar of ethical living, right?
Totally. No, that's not the question. Like they have much higher levels of ethics than most people. Like if you're really practicing for liberation. So you give up lots of attachments and lots of aversions, and you don't harm a single being. And you live with very few possessions. Like what if you follow the Pratimoksha ethic sternly. But and they want others to be happy and not to suffer. And they can engage in a lot of virtuous activities for that sake as well, like teaching and so on. But they're not ready to stay endlessly in samsara for the sake of sentient beings.
And in Mahayana, you're basically stuck in samsara until everybody is enlightened?
No, but you're willing to take a longer path. So, because of the fear of samsara is so strong in the middle scope, that fear of samsara and the renunciation of samsara is stronger than your compassion. And you can and if that is very strong, then you will practice ardently as well. So it's not like you're expecting somebody else to give you your nirvana, you're working hard for it. So imagine starting a business and you have to put a lot of your, money in it and a lot of working hours in it. You're barely sleeping and you're working seven days a night. And you're doing this day after day, year after year. And with time, with a few decades, you're starting to have some good money coming in from your work. And then somebody tells you you should give away all your money. Should most people would say, are you crazy? Why? They don't deserve my money. I worked for it. And look at them. They're all lazy. When I was working hard, they were just bums watching television, etc., etc. So this
Yes,
is
but
it.
it doesn't make sense because when you're a business owner, you don't know anything about emptiness and about wisdom and about morality, and they know.
Mhm.
So I just
The business is about emptiness. It's a spiritual business.
no, but once you realize emptiness, it doesn't make sense to me that you would not.
Why? They realize that they don't feel they're ready or they can.
You might not
feel
have
the
the
same.
karmic imprint to go into the Bodhicitta path.
Like maybe I don't understand because I always thought that once you realize emptiness, like the self-cherishing sort of
Self-grasping disappears or diminishes. You have to realize emptiness again and again until self-grasping completely disappears. But the self-cherishing, the subtle self-cherishing does not disappear.
It's very strong.
Okay.
So the antidote to self-grasping is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And the antidote to self-cherishing is bodhicitta.
Can you explain
And that's-
shortly the difference between cherishing and
Grasping.
grasping?
Okay. So self-grasping observes the I and exaggerates the mode of existence of this I. So things this I exist inherently. So it's a wrong consciousness. Self-cherishing is more an attitude. So it's observing the I, and that can be the object of negation, like observing based on a wrong consciousness, but it can also be based on a correct consciousness, observing the conventionally existent I which is labeled on the aggregates, the I which exists. But it observes this person as being somehow more valuable than others.
Oh.
And that is deeply parked in our mind.
Even that of a person who has practiced and has realized emptiness and
Yes, because if you don't practice bodhicitta, then you will not destroy that self-cherishing attitude. That's for the bodhisattvas to do. They will diminish the self-cherishing attitude, so they don't have the course like that I have. They will not, act like narcissists, brag or disrespect others or harm others in any way, which of course self-cherishing. But they are not uprooting the self-cherishing. I still think that because this is such a big project, we were speaking about eons. I'm not going to stay around. If you're in a burning building, what do? If you have some kindness, you sort of let the other people around you know, hey, look, it's a burning building, let's go out. And then they say, well, no, we're having fun. What do you say is a burning building? And we're not going anywhere. Oh, no, it's a burning building. It's a burning building. You're going to die here. Please come, please come. And no. You crazy? You paid so much money to get here. Eventually, this guy's going, okay, you stay and burn. I'm going. The bodhisattva looks for equipment, but doesn't leave the building. But knows that I cannot stay in the building, keep partying, but I'm not gonna run away either and expect the fire department to come. No, I gonna become the fire department. If not me, who? So
the metaphor for global warming.
It's very relevant these days.
It's a moral fire.
And that's not like that's because of nobility. Like that's because of yes, an unbelievable, unparalleled nobility of heart that the Bodhisattva acts like this. It is not that for us to take that for granted. If we do that, it's like we're acting like teenage kids with our parents. No, it's to understand these people out of nobility are willingly coming back to take care of mother sentient beings because they cherish these beings. But they are undergoing difficulties, at least until a certain part of the path. To do that. So when you check, yeah. So the Bodhisattva also needs to realize emptiness to eliminate the afflictive obscurations, but also the cognitive obscurations, what is blocking them from complete enlightenment. Cognitive obscurations are imprints left from having grasped at inherent existence since beginningless time, and which are causing phenomena in post-meditative equipoise, causing phenomena to appear to exist from their own side. So when they leave meditative equipoise, phenomena will appear to exist from their own side. In meditative equipoise, they see emptiness directly. Outside meditative equipoise, phenomena again appear as if they existed inherently, objectively, independent of the mind designating them. But they know that they don't exist in this way because they've seen how they really exist. But because they have the cognitive obscurations, they will continue to see conventional truth in this way until they have eliminated the cognitive obscurations, because they are the responsible for producing this appearance. And it is only when they have eliminated cognitive obscurations that they can see the two truths, conventional truth, ultimate truth, simultaneously with one mind. That is like the Buddhahood stage. And then you never have to leave meditative equipoise while engaging with sentient beings. So how do we develop this wisdom realizing emptiness? So there are many, first of all, we have to use reasoning, according to the Tibetan tradition at least. One needs to think about how does reality appear and how does it actually exist. And based on developing a strong familiarity with flawless reasoning, one can arrive at inferential realization that this is how phenomena appears to exist, but this is how I realize they do exist behind the appearance. And then you apply single point of concentration with this inferential valid cognizer, and it becomes a direct valid cognizer eventually. So first we have to use reasoning. And we have the reason of dependent arising, reason of four essentials, the reason of extreme production, and then the reason of ultimate analysis. So if you only go through like one reason of ultimate analysis, because it's the most straightforward one. So we have in our day-to-day life, a lot of the time, our mind is not pliant enough, or is not habituated to think about how phenomena really exist. But we only engage with things on the appearance level, because this is what we need to do in order to survive and to find temporal short-term happiness. We don't maybe see a reason why to go beyond the appearance, or if there is something beyond the appearance. So, and that is our conventional cognizers or our conventional valid cognizers. So when we see things that everybody can attest that they exist, the computer, the book, the people, he said this, she said that, etc. We engage with these with conventional valid cognizers. And those can be like reasoning consciousnesses, like we can apply reasonings, like when, a police investigation trying to find the killer. They're applying investigation, reasoning, and so on. Who actually did it? Or science, when they try to see cause and effect relationship between various things. But we're only engaging with conventional reality, or the appearance level. We are not asking ourselves what is really the true referent of what I'm thinking of, what I am, what I'm seeing, etc. That's for ultimate analysis. So when I say, I, and I start to think, what is really the true referent of I? Then we're approaching ultimate analysis. When we are trying to find out what a phenomena really is. And what appears to us is that the I has some kind of, let's say, you have to check your own mind stream, but what do you think about when you feel I, when you think I? And especially when something bad happens. There's a strong a sense of self-grasping, clutching of the mind. And there's a sense of a solid I. This happened to me. How dare this person speak like this to me? Do they know who I am? And so on. Actually, I am a monk, so why am I not respected? Or how dare this person not realize that I'm a man and not a nun, or something like this. All these kind of ideas of yourself gets activated. And this I is an idea in your head of who you are. And it appears to be real, solid from its own side. So when you really check for the referent of this I, then you start, okay, then if this I exists as it appears, as a findable entity, as a solid entity, then I should be able to find it when I analyze it, when I look for it. And then you check. You can begin doing this very simple meditation, but also a meditation that can bring a lot of calm to the mind, because you're diminishing the self-grasping. So you check, okay, if I exist like this, then I check. And you check, am I my body? And you check your various body parts. Then if I am my body, then am I my head, my arms, etc., etc., or am I all the parts? If I am all the parts, then what happens to me, when I cut my hair or cut my nails, etc., or when I lose my skin particles, etc.? Do I disappear? No, I still have my sense of identity there. I'm still Tenzin, I'm still Swedish, I'm still a monk, and so on. Although these things have disappeared. Do I really identify myself with the brain? Like when I say I like coffee, is it the same as saying the brain likes coffee? Does it have the exact same meaning? When my mother says I love you, does it say, oh, I love your brain? No. It's not like this. So we realize but we have to check this still, because even though when we talk about it, it doesn't sound like, well, I would never think like this. But sometimes we identify very strongly with our body. So we have to then check, what part of the body am I? Then we do the same with the mind. And we check, am I my feelings? If so, am I my pleasant feelings, my unpleasant feelings? If I'm my pleasant feelings, then what happens to me when I experience unpleasant feelings? Do I disappear? And does it really make sense to say that when I say I am walking, is it feeling is walking? It doesn't make sense. Conventionally speaking, doesn't make sense to say like this. And we check with discrimination as well. We check all the different mental factors. So feeling, discrimination, then the compositional factors of, various, like intention, attachment, anger, conscientiousness, mindfulness, introspection. You check them one by one. And you do it slowly. You try to do it openly and not with sort of presupposed conclusions. And you're likely not to find that you're not any of your mental factors either. Doesn't correspond really with the sense of self. And then you check your your main minds. You say, I'm not my eye consciousness, because when I close my eyes, I don't disappear. The sense of self is still there. When I go to sleep, I don't disappear. Sense of self is still there. So I'm not my sense consciousnesses. And you ask yourself then, analyze, am I my mental consciousnesses? If so, am I the coarse mental consciousness of the waking state, the subtler mental consciousness of sleeping state, or the most subtle level of mental consciousness at the time of death? Which am I? And if I'm the waking consciousness, then what happens to me at the time of death? Or if I'm the subtle consciousness at the time of death, then am I really existing now? Because this consciousness is not manifest, but my sense of self is manifest. So you check like this, and you come to the conclusion, oh, within the aggregates, I don't find a real self. I don't find a true referent of a self. And then you check, well, is this self then something apart from the body and mind, like a soul, an entity which is existing independent of the body and mind? And you will see that this also doesn't really make sense, because your conventional sense of I is always related to your body and mind. And this self, if it exists, then where? How do I get access to it? I can only access it through my mind, right? How else would I get access to it? I don't. So it's some sort of mysterious metaphysical entity that I cannot even prove with my mind. And such a self would have to be permanent, because the body, if it doesn't depend on the body and mind, does it depend on something else? And if it doesn't depend on something else, then it has to be permanent. And that means that nothing can change it, and it cannot change anything also, because a permanent phenomena cannot interact with impermanent phenomena. For that, causality is needed. So you rule out through analysis that I am not my body and mind, and I'm not separate from my body and mind. So what self is there? And you abide in this absence of a self. Try to abide, then you arrive at emptiness of the self.
But what's
And you get
required?
scared
Huh?
because it's like, oh.
You can. What is reborn? Yes. So the self, which is, then you have to check after that, what if you have had an experience or a little bit of taste of emptiness, which is the emptiness of inherently existent I. You don't check how does the self actually exist, because when I stop this analysis, when I stop this realization of absence of a self, then the self appears again. The sense of self is there again. I might still get angry and so on. And so you check, then if the self doesn't exist inherently, then how does it exist? Well, most of the Buddhist school, we say that the self does exist inherently. It is the subtle mental consciousness, because it's the mental consciousness which initiates actions and which experiences the results of actions, and which goes from lifetime to lifetime. And this is the function of the self.
Which is like the soul?
Which is not a soul, because it's not independent. You can call it soul, but it's not an entity independent of the body and mind. And it is not permanent, unitary, and independent. So
that's the subtle self.
So they would say this is the self which exists. That when you really check for the self, you will find your subtle mental consciousness.
That exists in which way?
That exists from their side, according to them, it exists inherently, from its own side as a findable entity. When we perform ultimate analysis from the Prasangika point of view, we don't find the self even as the subtle consciousness. We will see that when we analyze, the subtle consciousness is also not the self. So we don't find an inherently existent self. There's only an absence when we meditate on emptiness. The self which exists and that goes from life to lifetime is a self which arises independence on the body and mind, or independence on the subtle mind which goes from life to life. It is a merely designated independence on the body mind in the waking state, or when we die on this subtle consciousness. This is the self which exists. As in,
What they call the label. Okay.
yeah, the merely labeled.
Labeled I, or
You have questions on this?
We have plenty, but we don't have time. We need to dedicate to Marley.
To all sentiments. Okay. So we spend some time dedicating our merit. For compassion and loving kindness to grow in our mind, not to become just lip service, but to become a reality inside ourselves. For it to be impartial and to ripen into the mind of bodhicitta, so we can fully accomplish our own welfare, completely beyond sickness, aging, death, completely beyond all samsaric states, and at the same time accomplish the welfare of others, our kind mother sentient beings. So please think like this for a while. Now we can read these prayers. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teaching of all transmigratory beings, and may it especially cause the essence of the perfect pure Losang Tenzin teachings to shine forever. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise, and may that arisen not decline but increase more. May the wisdom realizing emptiness not yet born arise, may that arisen not decline but increase more. Samsara nirvana, like even an atom inherent existence, and cause and effect independent rising unbetrayed. I seek a blessing to discern the meaning of Nagarjuna's thought, that these two are mutually complementary and not contradictory. Incomparably kind, supreme Tenzin, the wish-granting, wishful and joy, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Save the Snow-Land teachings and transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path, that unifies emptiness and compassion. The devoted soldier Tenzin I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Now we can do the one from for Rinpoche. Please think, try to think strongly requesting strongly for Lama Rinpoche to return to this world, take yet another rebirth in a series of many, many rebirths that he has taken for the welfare of sentient beings, and not to be discouraged and give up in his work as the welfare of sentient beings in samsara. And for him to have an excellent rebirth with long life, manifesting good health, intelligence, and so on. So he or she will be of most benefit to sentient beings. Fearless teacher, an assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Prateka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite last, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, the explanation and practice, you are the armor of patience that is never discouraged, incomparable venerable Guru to your naked quest. By striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teaching, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings who suddenly departed to peace at a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And finally, we can, so as many beings as possible benefit, even passively. We can think that whoever sees us, hears our voice, says our name, sees a photo of us, touched by us, generate anger towards us, generate kindness towards us, that this will be meaningful for them, that it will pacify negative thoughts and emotions in their mind, and they will pacify sufferings of the body and mind, and that it will protect them from diseases and pacify any sicknesses which have arisen in their body and mind, and that it will protect them from harm, from other sentient beings, from the elements, from social problems, from crime, from poverty, and that it will increase their good qualities and make their minds inclined towards sort of an unbiased ethics, generosity, patience, and make them interested in compassion and love and kindness, and strive to develop them, not just words, but strive to develop them in their mind, and to meet some kind of Dharma tradition which, allows them to develop their mind in good qualities. And we also dedicate for all the forces of peace, the causes of peace in this region and the entire world become stronger and stronger, and that the forces of war and conflicts, they become weaker and weaker. For this, we need to make personal contribution on a daily basis in our life. So we dedicate that we will be able to do this. Then make personal dedications as well for dear ones that are in trouble or died.
Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you Tenzin for this precious teaching, the Lamrim, and like bringing us into the Lamrim again and again. And I hope we'll meet again next year or whenever it's possible, the conditions, and
Yeah.
I hope you have a good trip back, and your efforts will continue to help Dharma students and sentient beings and everyone. And the Shantideva group will continue to also to benefit sentient beings from your efforts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for having us. It's very great.
You're welcome.
Keeping up the efforts over how many years have you?
I don't know, 8, 9 years. But this group is more. This group is 10 or 15 years, maybe.
Chuck started it.